just to show some more of that disassociation with Bragg's generals, Longstreet arrives on the night of the 19th, and nobody's there to greet him. So that's a huge problem for a man of his rank. So Longstreet already comes on scene with an issue. He gets there, they have an informal kind of meeting over through the course of the night. Rosecrans is doing the same. So Bragg decides against Polk's word, just kind of like what Jonathan was talking about. Polk, from what I recall, he wants 3 wings, one under Hill, Longstreet, and Polk. And then Bragg says, no, let's go left wing, right wing. So he breaks it up into Polk on the left, as you were, Longstreet on the left, Polk on the right, okay? So from that point, he issues Polk, says, hey, I need your guys to attack in the morning on the 20th, at daybreak. And D.H. Hill is going to be your guy. So that word never gets relayed too. And this is kind of what Jonathan was talking about, some of that discourse and miscommunication. He said, she said. I don't know if we'll ever really know what happened as far as the correspondence, whether he got the word and chose not to obey. Some believe that possibly D.H. Hill was probably upset over the fact that he was not given a command fitting of his rank, so he probably wasn't looking for Bragg. And he probably wasn't looking for Polk either, and Polk being Polk, probably wasn't looking for Bragg to pass the word. So there you have that. The morning sets up, sun comes up, Bragg's like, where's the guns, what's going on? Nothing's happening. Turns out, again, Hill never gets the word, so he's eating chow. Bragg arrives on scene, starts kind of getting everybody, hey, get your guys moving, go fight. 0930, Bragg, according to Bragg, I think the attack was about 3 hours late. 0930, they end up, Hill attacks the northern flank and kind of gets pushed back a little bit by the Union forces. And the reason for that is because Thomas's men knew this attack was coming on the northern flank, understood the importance of that area, and decides to fortify and use those hours of delay to start building breastworks and actually reinforcing his position. So the attack doesn't really succeed all that well. At about this time, one of General Thomas's staff officers is walking back from the head shed or headquarters, and he says, hey boss, you got a break in the line. We need to go tell the general, or Rosecrans. So Thomas goes back to Rosecrans headquarters, which would be located on the 20th, about what, a mile or so to the north of us, in Brotherton Field? Dyerfield, okay. So he's up there to the north. Thomas comes back and is like, hey sir, we got a break in the line, and which kind of makes sense because they're sending all these reinforcements, or they're sending troops to the north to go fortify or go support General Thomas up there. So it kind of makes sense. Maybe these guys, maybe there is a break and we haven't filled it. Rosecrans issues a fatal order. He says to General Woods, hey, I need you to close up on Reynolds and move your guys to the north, kind of close the gap, okay? So from what I understood, Woods already kind of had his rear end worn out a few days ago, and he's like, hey, I don't want any trouble, so I know this might sound a little crazy, but I'm going to go ahead and initiate this order. The issue with that is the way the chain of command works is that order should have come from Crittenden, who probably had a better overview or better view of the battlefield. He may have known a little more where his men were compared to what Rosecrans knew, who's kind of in the rear, commanding the bigger picture. So again, delegation of authority. He, instead of going to his officer, or his officer over Woods, he goes straight to Woods with an order and tells him to execute it. So Woods executes, now you have a gap. And so all this happens in about a period of, let's say, an hour, hour and a half, if that. By around 11 o'clock that morning, now there is a very real gap, a very real threat. And fortunately for the Confederates, Longstreet had been using his time wisely as well and decides to put his men in a column of roughly 10,800, 11,000 troops right in the face in vicinity of Brotherton Road. So when that gap opens, he pushes his guys through at about 11:15, 11:30, and this whole ordeal takes about an hour. And this is where Rosecrans is actually standing in the field, and he is witnessing the rebels coming through the tree line at very close range. And the effects of that gap was catastrophic. So it sent Crittenden off the battlefield. It sends Rosecrans off the battlefield. Sheridan's coming in from the southwest, and he tries to fend off what he can. He fails. So now you've routed some of the major commanders off the battlefield. Your army is broke essentially in half, or at least 1/3 of them is completely out of the fight. They're gone. Yeah. What Bragg failed to do here is this is why, in my opinion, it wasn't as a decisive win as it could have been, because Bragg, had he been able to secure the northern flank on that day, he would have been able to cut off the egress from the retreating Union soldiers, capture the army, and it would have been devastating for the Army of the Cumberland. So yes, it was a Confederate win. Was it decisive? No, and for that reason. So General Thomas, he makes a stand over there around Snodgrass Hill, Horseshoe Ridge. Y'all saw the video, Rock of Chickamauga, very impressive. And he starts kind of rallying the troops as they're running back. Hey, let's hold the line, hold the line. What he does there, his actions on that day, did in fact, in my opinion, save Rosecrans and the rest of the army. So he says, I'm going to stay, and what I find very honorable is he sends one of his aides, hey, go pass word to the line, whatever, just passing orders down the line. And the officer looks back and says, well, General, where are you going to be when I come back? And he looks at him and says, I'll be right here. And you got to think, this is a man with less than probably 25,000 troops and about 60,000 rebels closing in on your position. Bragg does not use that size to his advantage. He starts piecemealing attacks, which is easily defended. In most cases, had he massed his army together, he probably could have overrun those guys relatively quickly and may have been able to defeat the rest of the Union soldiers retreating. So 18,000 casualties on the Confederate side, roughly 16,000 casualties on the Union side. So you have about a 1 in 3 chance of becoming a casualty on the battlefield. Trying to think what else. I think I covered about everything, unless there's anything you had to add to it.
Yeah.
So I'd just like to add that